Welcome to this new episode of the Outstanding Vegan. Today I'm with Norah. Hi, Norah.
Hi, Nathan.
It's a real pleasure to have you. Your energy is just amazing. I will let you introduce yourself. So, how would you introduce yourself?
I would say I'm Norah. I am a cool 53 going on to 54, but I still feel like I'm 30 or something. And I think I can describe myself as a passionate activist vegan.
That's beautiful.
That's who I am. I'm there to change the world.
That's beautiful. And you are, first of all, I must say, we ate so good. You just cooked for us. That was amazing. Food was amazing. Really, real passion with the food. That come from a passion, I believe, from your side, but also a culinary background that you have.
Absolutely. I've worked in many kitchens. I have never had any formal training, but I have worked in some hotel kitchens, in some restaurant kitchens. I've had 3 restaurants myself. And I have an absolute passion for food because every food has a story. And all the different countries have got, from their culture, food is something where we join each other and we share. This is the way that we actually share and communicate with the people around us, whether it be our family, whether it be our community, or whether it be the world, in a restaurant or in a food show. So at the end of the day, this is a wonderful way to send a message. And I think that's what I feel I can do, is I can put my story and what I want to portray to the world in food and share it with people around me. I love doing that.
You love, and thank you, because it's delicious. I'm absolutely
So
loving
glad.
it, and I'm gonna steal some recipe that I'm gonna make at home.
I hope you do.
Because that was so good. Also, so now we also did wine tasting. So here in Cape Town, South Africa, which is beautiful, absolutely amazing. We taste really good wine. Unfortunately, I could not drink. I'm just recovering from meals there. What a shame. But yeah, so there is many different things that I would like to talk here. Of course, your activism, your background as owning restaurants, and the wine. And I think this is the reason why, the first reason I heard you talk about veganism was around this labelization around vegan wine. And I think that's something that is really interesting to share. And we probably have a chicken in the background. That would be absolutely lovely. One of you chicken.
My kids. Yes, I've been in the wine industry for a very long time. I started as a student many years ago, too many to count. I started as a student on a wine farm to do weekend work to earn extra money. And I was so interested in wine because that's another thing that is alive. Wine is the one thing that doesn't change. It doesn't stop changing. Like whiskey or brandy, once you've made it and it's bottled, it doesn't change. Vodka, gin, doesn't change ever. 50 years later, it'll taste the same.
Stay the same.
Wine, on the other hand, is like a child. You put it in the bottle and it starts growing and developing and becoming a mature adult.
And you have surprise, as you were telling me earlier. You can even have wine surprise.
Yes, absolutely. So, when I took this job as exporting wines from the organic biodynamic wine estate that I work at, what my boss, who's also an old friend, what he said is, come Norah, you can join us and you can sell vegan wines to the world and you can share the vegan story that way. And I thought, it is actually a really nice way. And so I've traveled the world and we've had vegan events in Japan, in America, in Hong Kong, without me asking for it or anything, it was just arranged by my importers, because it's not often that they actually get the opportunity to put the focus on the vegan side of a wine, where many wines are labeled as vegan, but we decided to go the formal route and actually do the V label. Absolutely.
Just the normal.
And I'll tell you why. I think, especially for South Africa, it's very important that we make sure that our wines are seen as good quality. A lot of damage have been done in earlier years with selling in bulk, and so we are on a path to try and build up the wine industry of South Africa. Now, everything on our bottle, that little bus ticket on the side of the bottle, is supposed to be that everything that's said on the bottle is true and correct. Now, for me, downloading a label and saying it's vegan, and yes, the wine might be vegan. They might not use any animal products, but at the end of the day, I feel if you want to say your wines are vegan, if you want to state that, you need to be able to substantiate that claim. And I think with V Label, you are doing exactly that, because now you've got an audited, certified, lab-tested certification that is audited every year. They can do a test whenever they feel like it. And at the end of the day, it puts value to your wine. And I think for future, it's going to be a great thing, you know, because if you think about it, a third of the British population is now vegan. I saw that this morning on a news item. So the world is changing, and I think people are starting to say, you know what, if you claim something, I want to see that it's actually true.
I want a proof of it, especially that there's many scandal. I mean, I remember 2 years back in France, and it's a meat industry, but there's a big scandal of finding horse meat in lasagna.
Yes.
And even nowadays in vegan places or vegan food that you can buy, especially when you turn vegan, you can be really skeptical about stuff, and you really want to make sure in this level we make the difference. And it's funny because before, I think it's about a few months, and I'm vegan for for more than 2 years now. Since only a few months, I realized that wine is not always vegan.
Absolutely. It's so interesting, and I think a lot of people just take it for granted that, you know, it's grapes. Why would it not be vegan? But at the end of the day, I think what you need to do is everything, and it's difficult because you don't want to police your food and what you drink and what you eat, but you always want to find out what it really is about. I think that's very important. And therefore, you know, when people start realizing, oh my gosh, they put isinglass, which is ground up fish guts, egg white, lactose milk, there are processes where this is used as a norm. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think people don't realize that, and they just think if it says vegan on the label, it must be vegan.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a bit of a confused culture where some of the big players in the industry have not mislabeled, but they've made it very confusing, calling plant-based something plant-based, but then there's still egg in or there's still dairy in. You know, now people are like, so what is plant-based?
Yes.
You know, and I think it's the same thing with wine. Oh, it's grapes, so what? You know, the egg white isn't in there, it was just used for fining. But at the end of the day, if you want to say a wine is truly vegan, then you need to, you know, put your money where your mouth is. And I think with V Label, that's exactly what you can do.
Absolutely. And you talk about money, and that's something. South Africa is a big wine country, especially for export all around the world. So there is really big, how can I say that, big company, big group here. How does this, what is your fight here, and how can you, I say fight, but maybe it's
it is a fight. It's going to be a fight.
Because you have actors that worth millions, and you come and say your label, I mean, the what you write on your bottle need to be actually tested if you want to claim it, which matters a lot. How is it perceived in this environment?
You know, to make a bottle of wine, people won't believe how much it cost. It's actually, I don't know if you'll ever make money from producing wine. It has to be a love and a passion as well, because the costs of nurturing those grapes and putting that memory of a summer inside a bottle so that people can taste it everywhere and remember that summer. It's not easy. It's hard work. There's a lot of money that goes into it, and you don't always get back what you put in, to be very honest with you. So at the end of the day, I think, you know, we need to understand as the wine industry, us as South Africa want to upgrade our wines. We want to tell the world, listen guys, our wines are worth as much as any of the best wines.
Yes.
Absolutely. We've got a lovely style, our rules are strict. So I think farmers need to make sure that they put validity on those claims. And I have spoken with WOSA, Wines of South Africa, and we are now going to be speaking to Savas, which is the Wine and Spirits Board, and we are going to try and see if we can't incorporate the V-label certification in the whole process of certifying your wines, which would then be a natural process, and no one is forced to do it.
It'll be extra.
It'll cost extra, but it will add extra value to your wine. But at the end of the day, no one would be forced to do it. It would just be, you know what, if you want to say that, then make sure you have the proof,
the proof
to validate it. Yeah. And I think if we can do that with organic certification, then we can definitely do that with the label, with the vegan wines as well. Because at the end of the day, you know, how else are you ever going to know what the person is using and what they're not using? So, yeah, I think I stand very strongly on that. Not everyone agrees with me, and I also have respect for that. You know, a lot of people say, oh, come on, Norah. You know, if people say the wine is vegan, I mean, how much can you put in wine that's not vegan? But to me, you know, if you want to lay that claim, then do
Go
so
for it.
and use V-label.
That's amazing. And the wine we taste are nonetheless amazing.
They are really nice. I think they're made with passion. They're made an old-fashioned way. So time is a precious thing for us. We use time. We don't release immediately. We try and spend some time with the wines. You know, at the end of the day, I think you have to treat it like a little person, because it's going to go out there in the world and it's going to grow. And you want it to have the best start. So give it a little bit of time and then let it go.
And it's really interesting what we were explaining earlier is that it's totally a living being. I mean, even in the way the circulation, I was like, wow, it sounds like the circle of life, you know?
It is.
It's really amazing. And that brings me also to basically, I mean, I'm French, wine goes only in one place, is the table.
Yes, absolutely.
So that brings me to the food. So your food journey, I mean, first of all, your vegan journey, when did it start? Because you're a food activist, you're really engaged, and you have, I mean, beautiful children here. How did it start for you?
We had a funny start. I've always had a passion for animals, but you know, and I think we've all been there. You love animals, but you've grown up with meat and vegetables. So, you know, you sort of separate yourself from the fact that you're eating meat, but you love animals. Yeah. And a friend of ours brought a little piggy down from the Free State, flew her down, and she was tiny, way too tiny to be taken away from her mom. But they thought it would be a great idea to have at their backpackers as a dog almost, because you know they do have that same thing, especially in the UK. They're often the house pet. So she flew her down, and it was a few weeks later, and she said, listen, don't you know of anyone worth a farm, because we just can't deal with her. She goes and she wheezes on the same spot every time on the carpet, and my husband is getting upset about it, and they just needed to let her go. And my daughter Kendra, who's a very, very strict vegan, but at that point we weren't vegan, she said, oh, Mom, please, we have to take her, otherwise she's going to end up on someone's farm, and then she's going to get older, and then they're going to slaughter her. So Norah went, purchased her, because they wanted money for her, purchased her, and there,
for money.
yes, there we had a child. I promise you, it's like having a 4-year-old toddler in the house. I pulled my hair out in the beginning. I wanted to just say, listen, you need to go to the SPCA, because I can't deal with you any longer. She would tear up the toys, Kendra's toys, and she would chase my dog, and it was very difficult, and scream for her food like she did this afternoon.
I heard that.
She doesn't normally do that anymore. You know, that was 11 years ago. But she's really taught us what it means to actually be vegan. Because, you know, and it started out, we went out to breakfast. I love going out to breakfast. And we had bacon and eggs, and we got back, and it just hit both me and Kendra at the same time. We are actually eating something that is a pet in our house. How do you do that?
You had the end of
suddenly
the separation.
That connection.
Blend in.
That connection
Wow.
was right there. And then we decided, okay, fine, we'll be vegetarian. No pescatarian. We'll still eat fish because we love sushi. And you know, the more we went on our little journey, we realized, we can't have milk. Because if you understand the story about where milk comes from and what it's meant to be and what it is, you don't want to be there. And then you look at the egg industry, and you realize that my little kids were in a battery, you know, and they only live 18 months because that's the time that they are allowed to live. And and then we realize what is happening to fish, and that they feel, and they're sentient beings. So we watched a YouTube video of Martin Dinglewall, who's an Australian actor, and it was about his journey of going vegan, and we just looked at each other and we said, that's it, we're going vegan. Enough. So much so that I actually sold my restaurant in the Hemel en Aarde Valley.
So you had your restaurant that were non-vegan at this time.
I had an ethical eatery because I knew I wouldn't be able to open a vegan eatery at that point on a farm in the middle of nowhere because people weren't ready. This was quite a few years ago. So, you know, 2013, 2012, it wasn't the right time. So I knew I couldn't open a vegan eatery, but I wanted to make sure that people could trace where everything came from. So everything had a story. If there were charcuterie, I would be able to tell you where it came from. If there was a steak, it was a Frankie Fenner steak. And then I realized, but Norah, and I actually had a very, very hectic activist vegan come to a boycott against the circus that I organized in the Hermanus. And I invited everyone to my restaurant afterwards because I served some vegan dishes. And I said everyone could have 10% off, and please come and have free wine. And she came to me and she said to me, I will never eat in your restaurant. And I'm like, what? Why? You know, I was like, I'm inviting you to my beautiful restaurant and you say you'll... She said, because you're a hypocrite. Here you standing against circuses and saying that you're vegan, yet you serve meat at your restaurant. I will never go there. And it had such an impact on me that it was continuously playing in the back of my head. And then I did a wedding for 120 people, and they wanted lamb shank. So you can imagine 65, 70 lambs had to die for me to have 2 shanks, you know, because that's the back quarter or something that they use. And I just realized, but Norah, you are a hypocrite. You are making money out of the very thing that you're against. And I just realized I can't have a normal restaurant anymore. So I sold it for next to nothing. And I opened the first vegan restaurant in the Overberg.
How was that? How was this transition
Oh.
of like having a restaurant of, I mean, 2013 we're talking about a full working restaurant, so activity, and then selling it and just going to open a vegan place.
A little vegan, tiny little shop. You know, it was just, I just decided it's something I had to do. And I took a leap of faith. And to be honest with you, Hermanus wasn't ready for it. And I wanted to stand up and say, I'm not going to have milk. Just because people say, but just have milk and eggs. No, I'm not going to have milk. I'm not going to have eggs. If you can't drink my beautifully homemade nut milks, because in those days there weren't all these fancy milks, you know, I made my own nut milks. If you can't try that out just once, then don't come here. That was how I felt. I had some things on the wall, you know, like for instance, what some great people like philosophers, Einstein and people would say about us humans, and there won't be peace on this earth until we learn to be in peace with animals.
Exactly.
And I had a whole lot of them on, like written on the walls, and I asked my printer to choose the 6 that I was going to put on, because I didn't want it to be me, because some of them were quite hectic, you know, that people would get upset about. Do you know that I had people who looked up, saw the thing on the wall, and then would get up and walk out because they didn't like
what he was telling them inside.
Like,
inside.
you know, you can't say you love animals when you eat animals.
Yeah.
You love pets, you know.
Yeah.
And it's true. But people don't want to.
It's not an issue in itself. I mean, it is, I believe, but it's not an issue itself. It's just you have to say it. It's about standing your ground.
I was a little bit naughty in that sense. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go all the way out. And at the end of the day, I basically closed the restaurant. It was becoming very difficult because, you know, trade from Cape Town was lovely. I mean, people would come out. Friends of mine would always support me, but you couldn't just be busy over weekends. You know, you had to have day trade as well. And funny enough, I would do food and wine pairings in the evenings, like a 6 or 7 course meal with wines to taste for 160 Rand.
Which is
160 Rand.
For people in Europe, it would be.
It would be like for free.
Yeah, it's about €8. We're talking about €8.
Yes.
It's
so
wow.
I would have the fully booked every time. Fully booked. I had to bring in extra tables and extra glasses and you know, I couldn't seat everyone. None of them vegan, all from town. Everyone was there like, oh, can't believe you could do this with vegan food. And then when it's normal trade, they're not there. So I had a lot of support, but I decided, you know what? I had a lot of people say, this will never work. And, you know, I'm a fighter, so I wanted to say, well, I'll show you, it will work. And it didn't. And it was a big lesson for me because I had to stand back, look at myself and say, Norah, this was not the right move at the right time. But you haven't lost, you've learned a lot. And I really felt like I got a lot out of it. I got a lot of a good rep there.
How long was that? So you had the non-vegan restaurant for how long?
For 2 years.
And then the vegan place?
Yes. And then, the non-vegan restaurant, the Ethical Eatery, was from 2012 till 2016, 15, 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that quite a few years. And then the vegan eatery I had for almost a year. But the reason why I decided at that point to close, it wasn't like I was going down or anything, but the building that I was renting in, the manager of the building, he was very, very sweet, and he really tried to help and support me because he thought it was a great idea to have a vegan eatery in the building. And it did draw a lot of people. So he came to me and he said, listen, we're selling the building, and I just wanted to let you know that the people that are buying this they're not very eager to have a vegan eatery here. So they're not going to give you any slack. So if it's going to become difficult in winter or so, they're not going to help you out with rent or so. And you sign an agreement for 3 years. So I had to go and do a little bit of soul searching and think about it. And I realized, you know what? I'm not failing if I decide to not go on. I'm actually just changing my path.
Just moving.
And it was the best thing I ever did. Because from there, I closed. They released me from my lease, which almost never happens. And I could move on to education. So suddenly, I had Pure Cafe in Greyton, where I taught the girls some tricks of the trade and showed them some nice dishes to cook, because they're a little vegan eatery. And I have 2 or 3 clients. I mean, Peregrine Farm Stall, I do all their vegan food development. And the Bicycle Hotel, I did huge vegan events there where people didn't even know they're going to have vegan food. And they would come for a conference and we'll just be vegan.
Did you feel like you renew yourself in that process of...
Absolutely.
Because you were like in the restoration for like a bit more than 6 years, approximately 6 years, and by yourself, being your own, you kept that cap of your own.
Yes. It might sound funny, but to me it was almost a relief, because when you work for yourself and you have a restaurant, you have a huge responsibility, because the people working for you, they're your family, they're your people. And anything that happened in their lives involved, I had to worry about it, because it impacted me, because they're part of who we are, So it can be quite stressful, especially when things are going tough. Yes. So it was a huge relief to walk into a place, do what I love the most, and that's creating new dishes, be paid for it, and then say, au revoir, here I go.
That was a nice
and then
day.
Come back. And it was so nice. I worked with some really nice people. Pure Cafe, the girls are like family. And we did such interesting things. And Nikki allows them to sort of do their own thing, so they can be creative as much as they want. They must just produce vegan food and sell it. And at Peregrine, there's always music playing. And I cannot tell you how many of the staff came to me, and everyone wants to taste and everyone wants to find out. And there are 3 people at Peregrine that changed to a vegan lifestyle because of those dishes. Wow. That we made. And it's just such a wonderful feeling to share knowledge and educate people that are really, really interested. They like, oh wow, but this is so amazing that you can make something that tastes almost like meat, and it's healthy.
And it's healthy, and it's plants. It's something when you bring the dishes on the table, it's something I really enjoy myself. It's just like I look at table and it's like it's all plants, and it's just satisfying. And I believe one of the reason, one of the reason I cook vegan personally is also just to share. This is what I love to share. This is what I love to cook for others more than in any other places, is to be able to share the vegan food, the vegan lifestyle, receive friends and just like, hey, look at it. I do even also, and just be like, yeah, just there is no judgment here. Just try the food. If you like it,
yes,
it will change probably.
I feel so much the same than you do on that. I love just dishing up. I mean, I did a wedding for 80 people in Stanford, and the bride and the groom were vegan because of religious reasons. So the family wasn't really into vegan, and the groom's family comes from Namibia. No. This is like beef country, you know. The people there, I think they only eat meat. So I had these big farm boys at this wedding, and everything's vegan, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But what we decided to do is do little dishes. So I had slider burgers and a little bit of beef stroganoff, and I tried to make lots of different dishes so that people would concentrate on, oh, what's this taste? Oh, how does that taste? Rather than, here is a plate of food. It's not what I'm used to, and I don't like it. And you know that two of the guys said to me, are you sure that wasn't a meat burger? And it was a patty that we made ourselves, for many years. And I was so happy that it was so successful. And I think that's the thing, when you change people's mindsets, when they suddenly realize, oh my gosh, it's not just lettuce and carrots. There's like a whole world of flavors and taste experiences and stories that you can share. And I think that's the best thing about plants. I mean, just think about an aubergine. How many different things can you do with an aubergine? Just think about it.
A lot. I mean, I would even say just in the oven, the number. Like,
yes,
just
exactly.
using the oven, then you can take the pan if you want to.
Yeah.
You can it's absolutely amazing.
And then I've been asked to cook for SOS vegans. Now, I don't know if you know what SOS vegans are. I didn't know that either, but I went and Googled it. It's salt, oil, sugar free. So now you have to cook a vegan meal without salt, without oil, and without sugar. That is quite complex. An interesting little challenge.
Absolutely.
But you know how interesting it was, because, for instance, what I would do is I would take rosemary sticks and put that through the mushrooms and the aubergines, and now when you're cooking it, that rosemary would infuse into the aubergine and the mushroom. So suddenly you had flavor. So you would use the natural plants to flavor your food. It was just amazing. I should be actually doing more of that, but yeah, I haven't.
So many things to do at
so
the same
many
time.
and so little time.
And how did it came to you? So you made the transition. Did you have directly support from the vegan community, and you start to have jobs on your own, so not having the restaurant anymore? How did you came to build up this? Example, cooking for SOS. How did that happen? Did you went for it?
I think sometimes it was word of mouth, and I've got a lot of friends. Sometimes it's word of mouth, and at the end of the day, my little restaurant, because we did catering and I did advertise on social media, I got a lot of requests, that way, so directly. So I think that was probably, and then I did a few cooking shows as well, competitions and stuff on television, and that also led to one or two things. So at the end of the day, I think the vegan community in South Africa is very closely knit. Even if you don't know someone personally, you know someone that knows someone.
I realized that recording this podcast here in Cape Town at the moment,
yes.
compared to when I was in London, the community is big, and you don't have what you have here.
No, we're a close-knit community actually, and sometimes we have disagreements, you know, and sometimes we have the vegan police.
But on vegan wine.
But I think at the end of the day, a lot of people are here, and I think that's quite a big difference. You know, you get people that are vegan because they're living a plant-based lifestyle for health and for the environment. But for us, it has always been the animals first. My reason for being vegan are the animals. Yeah. I didn't really care about the rest. But now, as you progress, and you know how it is when you progress when you're a vegan, you start wanting less meat, more vegetables. You don't want to have everything like you used to have it. You know, that comfort food, that's not a big thing anymore. But also you realize, oh my gosh, but I am doing something for the environment. And I am doing something for my health because I don't get sick.
Absolutely.
You know, so at the end of the day, it's just a win-win-win.
Absolutely. It's I mean, I would love to say I don't get sick when I'm having an ulcer at the moment. But that's the main thing. I know that personally, I turned vegan, it was for the animals. And even now, I don't say it's because of my health. It directly impacts my health. Obviously, I haven't, apart from what I have right now, in the past 2 years, and I've been that less sick, which is amazing. And I really want to give that, because my lifestyle haven't changed that much. Still do that much sports and everything. But yeah, directly you have an impact on every layer of your life. And
absolutely.
I would even like push it even further. I think that even spiritually, I feel more connected to my environment. I mean, we have animals today. It's just amazing to be able to be that close for animal, and not just physically close, but to see them as living being, which obviously change a lot.
They're allowed to be who they are. Yeah, which seems to be my chickens want to be in the house all the time. They think that's where they're supposed to be.
where they're supposed to be. That's and so also you have a lot of you help a lot in terms of the vegan scene here, in terms of food development, also projects. How did that came from? Like you had this whole journey, so you had like kind of a lot of responsibility with the restaurant. Then you free yourself by saying, you know what, just let it go. And then you decided to help again. Why not keeping this free road just by yourself? What made the change?
I think friends, motivation, recommendations. You know, and also I'm. Can I almost describe myself as a little busybody? Because, well, not little, but I am a busybody because I like to be involved. I like to help with change, and I like to make it happen. You know, we at the forefront. I mean, one day we're going to look back and we're going to say we were the start of the vegan revolution, and I want to be part of that. And for me, that is on every level. So I want to be part of Veganuary. I want to be part of food security, showing people that you can actually, I mean, we've got a project in Greyton at the Farm Animal Sanctuary where I'm on the board of trustees, where we have a pigs to plants project. So we take pig farmers that would normally farm with pigs, and we offer to take the piggies so that they can come and live at the sanctuary for the rest of their lives, And we then help them to change their piece of land into a vegetable farm.
That's beautiful.
And I can't tell you the change in the farmers, the change in personality. I mean, the first guy that we helped, Andre was ex-convict and very angry at the world. And he would be so nasty to everyone around him and fighting, and no one wanted to be around him. And then he started, doing plants, and you should see him now. His wife is happy, his children take their veggies that they've grown to the market and sell it there on Wednesdays. It's just amazing, and he's just made a change like that.
Of itself.
So it shows, when you are not dealing with that absolute against nature, because, when you are farming animals, there is always an act of violence involved.
Because there is resistance.
Exactly.
On their side.
No matter if it's you or the person that you send the animal to, there's an act of violence involved. When you are growing vegetables, there's no act of violence, because vegetables invite you in with color, with flavor, with smell, and see what happens when you cut off a spring onion or a leek. It grows again.
You just plant it and it grows
Pick
again.
your spinach and see what happens. It just grows more. At the end of the day, it's reviving itself, it's regenerating. So why would it then be bad to eat it?
Absolutely.
So for me, I think, there's so many challenges and educational things, and I think that's all the world needs to change. Is we need to show people that it can be so amazing. Just because we grew up with something and we think it's normal, doesn't need to be normal. We can make the most amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it can be so much fun. I mean, don't you think, since you've become vegan, it's more fun to cook?
To be totally honest, it's more fun to cook. Is I rediscovered cooking by turning vegan. So obviously I was in the army, so it was kind of complicated for me to also have a fully functional kitchen. But turning vegan, I just realized it put me in the kitchen, basically, because as you say, there is this big educational gap that we have, and I had to educate myself. Okay, I'm gonna make food. My dad is Cameroonian. It's really meat-based diet. My mom obviously was not vegan at the time. No one was vegan around me. I know my sisters tried it a few years ago, and even myself, I made fun of her. But I was facing my plate, and I was like, okay, I need to learn how to make food for myself, because I live alone, and I need to learn how to make food that when I'm with my parents, I can share with them, and they will enjoy it. And at my grandma, the same thing, because I didn't want to see meat on the table. So I just like, okay, I have to do it. And just by practicing, I made my first vegan Thanksgiving for friends. None of them were vegan, but we all enjoy a vegan Thanksgiving. And through that, say, okay, I actually love to cook for others. Like, it's really great. So more than rediscovering, it's just like,
Oh, absolutely. It's like you almost have a paintbrush, you know, and you are
on the blank
painting this, and it's color. And that's the thing about vegetables. There are colors galore. Where with meat, there's one color.
That's true. And you were telling me, really interesting here. We're already, I think, getting closer to the hour, which is amazing. We're going super fast. But on that chef side of you, what inspires you to cook? You were telling me at table, I'm gonna give the inch about the story behind the food, and that when you feel about one story, you just want to dig in it. Is it that? What's more?
It's I love creating, and I love it. I love to make food, show it to people, and I love it when they like it, you know. But I also love the stories behind it. So I will look up. My mind constantly revolves around food and dishes. I think about dishes that I can make often when I see things. So I would be walking in the shop and see artichoke or kohlrabi or something like, you know, something that looks interesting. And immediately my mind will start going, oh, what can I do with this? What can I create? And then I go and Google it and look up what it is, what the flavors are, where is it traditionally used, and then very often it would be from a specific country. Now I start feeling that country, and I want to bring that culture in. It's like, you know, when you're making Peruvian food, you almost want to feel like you're part of that lovely culture with the colorful clothing and the beautiful chilies, and yes, and there's so many different areas in Peru and so many different potatoes. I think there's like 1,000 or something different potato types in the world. Yeah, and they've got most of it. So think about it. They've got 2,500 different traditional desserts, each with a story. And then you know, and you see the products that you can use, like Baharat spice. Doesn't it sound like you want to do something with it? Baharat. You just want to work it. And there's rose petals in. I mean, to put that in the spice and get that floral infusion into your food, how lovely. So now I'm like thinking, what can I do with Baharat spice? And I want to make it, you know? So I think that's how I cook. My dishes go around, I see something, I start interest in it, and then I read up about it, or I go and search. It's almost like I can feel that country and that culture, and I want to recreate it. Because I love traveling, you know. So I've eaten some interesting dishes, especially since I'm vegan. I've had some really interesting vegan dishes from all around the world. So I think that's where my you know, what I like to cook and where my cooking passion comes from.
Traveling in the plate.
Traveling in the plate, yes.
That's absolutely
and put
beautiful.
some peace on that plate.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. That's absolutely beautiful. Norah, I want to wrap up this episode, and I want to say thank you. First of all, thank you for the wine tasting, for the visit. Every day I'm more in love with Cape Town. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. Thank you for the food, and thank you for sharing with us this amazing journey. Longer, I think we could spend the whole day talking, and it's not the first time that we talk. And I always restrain myself to ask questions for this moment, and now I'm just like, I don't have enough time. I want more time. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, because it's really inspiring. Also. I really like this vision that you have with food, and also that notion that you say of freedom, like when you say no to your restaurant was not a failure, and that's something I really want to try to like portray, that sometimes saying no or stopping something is not being a failure, it's just moving on to something new.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for being here today. It was so nice to share my passion with you. And yes, I think that's how you learn, you know, when you can actually stand back and say, no, I didn't fail, because you don't fail. You actually change your path. And there's always another door that's opening, and I just love it. And, you know, I think the vegan journey, you've got so many people that you get to know, and, you know, to be, for instance, in New York, and there's another person getting excited about a vegan restaurant that you both went and searched for, like Matthew Kenny Cuisine. You go to one of his Hungry Angelinas, or, you know, something like that, and suddenly you're there and it's all exciting, and you just want to hug the person next to you because you're so excited that you're on this journey, and there's other people that's on it too.
That's so true.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Thank you also for watching and listening to that episode of The Outstanding Vegan. And we see you next week for a new episode.